Welcome to this explainer. Look, today we are getting right into it. I'm going to be your mentor as we crack the code on the UCAT exam's most high stress and, honestly, most misunderstood components: decision making and the situational judgment test, or SJT. These sections are absolutely notorious for throwing applicants off balance. But as you'll see, once you understand the hidden frameworks behind them, they actually become entirely manageable.
Okay, let's kick things off with a pretty terrifying question if you're an aspiring medical or dental applicant. I really want you to think about this. Can a perfect cognitive score still result in a flat-out rejection letter? Imagine you've maxed out your verbal reasoning, your quantitative math is flawless, your logic is incredibly sharp. Are you safe?
The short answer, yes, you absolutely can be rejected. And honestly, this brilliantly illustrates why treating the SJT as some sort of afterthought is literally the biggest mistake you can make. Scoring in the lowest tier, which is band 4, on the situational judgment test is an immediate deal breaker for universities like Edinburgh, Kiel, and Sunderland. It completely doesn't matter how brilliant your cognitive scores are. It is not just a soft recommendation, it is a hard gatekeeper. So, to make sure you don't fall into that trap, here's our roadmap for today. We'll be looking at conquering the UCAT's trickiest sections, decoding decision-making, understanding the SGT band system, unlocking the GMC cheat sheet, and finally, mastering those specific SGT question types. All right, diving into Section 1, conquering UCAT's trickiest sections, specifically cognitive versus non-cognitive. Let's look at how the exam splits your brain into two completely different modes of thinking. You see, there's a really fundamental split in this exam. On one side, you've got your cognitive scored sections. That's your verbal reasoning, quantitative reasoning, and decision-making. These are scored from 300 to 900, and they rely entirely on pure logic, data interpretation, and problem solving. But on the other side, the non-cognitive situational judgment test, which is scored in bands from 1 to 4. For this, the SJT demands you shift gears completely. You have to literally put the calculator away and instead evaluate professional values, ethics, and workplace behavior. Moving right along to Section 2, decoding decision-making, the logic test. The parameters for this logic test are seriously tight. You have a brutal 37 minutes to get through 35 questions. This section assesses your ability to manage risk, evaluate arguments, and deal with uncertainty, which, by the way, are skills clinicians use every single day. But here is the absolutely crucial detail. Zero clinical or medical knowledge is required to answer these. None. It is purely about how your brain processes complex information under pressure. So, what exactly are you going to be facing? Well, there are 6 specific question types you need to master. You'll run into logical puzzles, syllogisms, interpreting information, recognizing assumptions, Venn diagrams, and probabilistic reasoning. Now, here's a massive insider tip straight from the source material. These questions are ordered roughly from easiest to hardest in the actual exam. That means you cannot afford to get stuck early on. Keep moving, secure those easier marks, and whatever you do, don't let a complex logic puzzle drain your clock. All right, Part 3, the SJT band system and its high stakes. Let's completely demystify the scoring of the dreaded SJT. Check out this breakdown of the 2025 data. Band 1 is the highest outcome, achieved by 21% of candidates. Band 2 is the most common, at 39%. This actually tells us something incredibly reassuring. Securing a highly competitive Band 1 or Band 2 is totally achievable. That's 60% of students, provided, of course, you understand the rules of the game. However, 10% still fall into that dangerous Band 4 zone, which, like we just talked about, can instantly end an application. So how do we avoid Band 4? By truly understanding this one concept, partial credit. It's a game changer. In the SJT, there are no penalty marks for wrong answers. And if your answer is close to the correct one, you actually get half marks. So say the perfect answer is A, very appropriate thing to do, and you click appropriate but not ideal, you still get partial credit. This means being slightly wrong costs you way less than being completely wrong. Avoiding catastrophic, totally off-base answers has to be your absolute top priority. Which brings us right into Section 4. The GMC cheat sheet. This is your ultimate guide. Now, the most common trap students fall into actually comes from their own real-world experience. If you've ever shadowed in a hospital, you've probably seen doctors taking pragmatic shortcuts under immense pressure, right? Well, forget what you saw.
The SGT does not test real-world hospital culture. It tests the perfect, idealistic standards of the GMC. You absolutely must answer based on what a doctor should do in a perfect utopian world, not what they might actually do on a chaotic Tuesday night ward shift.
And similarly, here is another huge pitfall, the empathy trap. You must never, ever conflate what feels kind to a colleague with what is technically correct. If a colleague is totally exhausted and making medication errors, covering for them to avoid a confrontation might feel like the nice thing to do, but it is fundamentally wrong. Patient safety always overrides professional loyalty. No exceptions.
Seriously, if you only take away one single thing from this entire explainer, memorize these 4 core principles. 1. Patient safety comes first, overriding literally everything else. 2. Patient autonomy must be respected. Even if a patient makes a choice you completely disagree with, it's their choice. 3. Honesty is non-negotiable. Never, ever conceal an error. And 4. Work within your competence and always seek supervision when you are out of your depth. Almost every single correct SGT answer traces directly back to these 4 pillars. Let's wrap things up with Section 5, Mastering SJT Question Types with a Tactical Approach. You're basically going to face 3 distinct question formats. First, rating how appropriate an action is. Second, rating how important a consideration is. And third, selecting the most and least appropriate actions from a list of 3. Applying the wrong decision process to a specific format is exactly where most applicants hemorrhage marks. You need a distinct strategy for the rating questions versus the ranking questions. For those appropriateness and importance rating questions, I highly recommend using the rule of 2. This practically guarantees you at least partial credit. Step 1, decide the direction. Is the action broadly right and helpful, or is it wrong and harmful? Just by making that binary choice, you immediately narrow it down to 2 options and secure partial marks. Step 2, judge the degree. How optimal or how disastrous is it really? Does it directly solve the main problem, or is it just kind of not ideal? Now, take a look at this number, 22. That is exactly how many seconds you have per question in the SJT. 69 questions packed into 26 minutes. You do not have time to agonize over the nuances of human emotion here. You've got to read the scenario, identify the core GMC issue, like is it patient safety, is it honesty? Apply that rule of 2, make your rapid, framework-based decision, and move on. If you're stuck, flag it and keep moving. So, I'm going to leave you with this final thought to chew on. When you're sitting in that exam hall, with your medical future on the line and only 22 seconds ticking down on the clock per question, are you going to guess based on what just feels right in your gut? Or are you going to systematically apply the insider rules and GMC principles we just uncovered today? The choice and ultimately your future band score is entirely up to you. Thanks so much for joining me on this explainer, and best of luck with your prep.